Today, Fantastic brings you 12 houses that nobody wants to buy. I'm Ronald Milano, Research Director of Fantastic. Here we will see a dozen properties that no matter how much they reduce their prices, no person dares to live in them. And did you know that the King of Pop's Neverland Ranch received a discount of $69 million? Or that an entire mansion has been for sale for years for only $10 now. The former home of Michael Jackson hit the real estate market in 2015 with a price of $100 million. But despite the fact that they reduced its price and is now for sale for only $31 million, they still not have found a buyer. This being a sign that potential buyers do not want to have all the peculiarities and controversies that occurred within its wall. The Californian property of more than 1,000 hectares, including the main house of 1,200 square meters and 6 bedrooms as well as 3 guest houses, a swimming pool, a lake, tennis and basketball courts, and even an amusement park. But buyers still can't forget the time that property was vacated by police in 2003 amid the King of Pop's abuse scandal that led him to abandon it. And he was never visited since the ranch fell. The park were removed and the impressive land with gardens, a stone bridge and 4 lakes became overgrown after his death. It was renovated by the estate agents, but since there is a clause that stipulates that the buyer cannot convert it into, and it has also been dedicated to the singer, no one has ever been interested in buying the King of Pop's ranch. Amityville House of Terror. On a cold night in 1974, Ronald Defoe Jr. murdered his entire family in cold blood at his residence at 112 Ossa Avenue in Amityville, New York. And with a total of 6 victims, this was just the beginning of the story. Although what happened was horrifying in itself, it was not until the house was bought by the Lutz family that his property became infamy, with the Lutz family lived in the house, claiming that they were driven out of relentless paranormal events such as swarms of flies, slime oozing walls, spectral voices, and multiple sightings of similar creature. The tale was popularized by a book titled The Amityville Horror, which subsequently spawned the film franchise that continues to produce films about the chilling events. And while most details of the looks history has been disproved, true believers believe that it has been the vengeful spirits of the Defoe family, or that the house was built on top of an Indian burial ground. The house in itself, it has become an icon of horror. The memory of its tragic past will remain forever. The $10 mansion. Would you think it is possible you could buy a house the size of a palace for less than the cost of a pizza in Montclair, New Jersey? A turn-of-the-century mansion 20 recently went on the market, and it can be used for the amazing price of $10. This particular colonial-style mansion contains 6 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. It also has a tennis court, a garage that covers just over 400 square meters. But given the size and the numerous amenities, its market value is $135 million. The problem arises from the fact that the house is listed as a historic property and must be preserved, but cannot be occupied where it currently is. Whoever buys the residence would have to move it to another place because the land will be used to build other houses. There are also other conditions that must be met by whoever buys it, as moved within a radius of 400 meters from current location and must pay all associated costs of relocation. The seller even offered $10,000 to help with the cost, but this really is nothing because changing its location will cost more than $200,000. Another problem is that because the house is so old, there could be asbestos problems, and any type of repair and renovation requires that it is done according to the historical standards that tend to be excessively expensive. So now it should not be surprising that nobody wants to buy the $10 mansion. The mansion is situated in the city of Port House in Washington. It was built in 1889 by George, a contractor who spared no expense to build a house for his wife that was designed by the combination of Gothic and Victorian tonic styles. For that time, it was built with a stratospheric figure, but did not matter because George John fully enjoyed his beautiful new mansion and lived there with all his life. With his only son Edward movie star and his nanny over the years, the descendants of the couple lived in the family home until it was decided to put it on the real estate market. A couple bought the mansion and turned it into a luxurious boutique hotel until they decided to retire in 2005, when they put their property on the market that they have not been able to sell due to a series of supernatural manifestations. Even though the ghosts that inhabit the mansion are peaceful in nature, including a red-haired woman who is believed to be a spirit of Annie. This network, perhaps acting as a hostess for the living, wanting everything to be warm and welcoming to the guests, have also felt an aura that could be the nanny who made the windows rattle and moved the objects in the place when a client made negative comments about the hotel, and it is perhaps for this reason that this mansion has remained for the sale for so long. The La Mansion Schweppe, the property considered one of the most impressive in the Chicago area, it spreads over 2,300 square meters, and inside it offers a dizzying 28 rooms to explore, including at least 10 bedrooms, plus 11 bathrooms. A dining room forms a library and a huge kitchen. Despite the restoration carried out in 1980, after having been derelict for almost 50 years, today the house looks very original, as it had just been built in 1917. The house was a gift of a wedding made by Laura Shedd's parents, and it became one of the site's favorites of high society for several years until the tragedy struck and Charles Schweppe died of a heart attack in 1937. And in 1941, servants entered his room to find him dead, a self-inflicted wound accompanied by a note that says, "I have been up all night. It's terrible. Through the manor's heir have been silent about the reasons for keeping it vacant. The legend has it that Charles Schweppe ordered them to leave the house empty for 45 years after his death. In case he decided to return as a reincarnated resident, and those who have visited say that the spirits of Charles, Laura, and various servants still inhabit the halls of the old mansion that has been for sale with a price that was reduced from $18 million to $9 million, but no one has confirmed daring to buy Haunted Mansion. One night in June 2014, Derek and his wife Mary, after having bought the 6-bedroom house for $135 million located at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. They were doing some renovations before they moved in, and just before they called it quits for the day, they found a letter that said, "Dear new neighbor, let me welcome you to the neighborhood." But as he was still reading the letter, that took an unexpected turn when he read what it said was, "How did you end up here?" he asked the writer. He called home with his inner strength. 657 Boulevard has been a part of my family for decades, and as he approaches his 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for the second arrival of my grandmother. We watched over the house in 1920s and my father in the 1960s. Now it's my time. You know the history of the house. You know what's inside of the walls of 657 Boulevard. Why you are here? There are hundreds and hundreds of cars passing by your house every day. Maybe I'm in one of them. And the letter concluded with the suggestion that this message wouldn't be the last. It was signed by a man who called himself the Watchman. The couple never had the courage to move into their new home with their 3 young children and continued to receive disturbing letters from the guard. For several years, several private investigators, the police, and even the FBI tried to reveal the identity of the guard but never managed to find him.